I'm going to give you my HDR recommended settings for Tale Requiem. And this is not really HDR, this is just auto HDR. It is good that the game is supporting the HDR calibration app on Windows 11. So the first thing that you need to do is, if you have an LG C1 CX, one of these 800 nits LG OLEDs, you're going to set up the HDR calibration app zero, so zero minimum brightness, 780 and 780, and you know, just the default colors, and that is going to give you a max CLL of 797 for every single auto HDR supported game, or for this game, which is it's not auto HDR supported, but it is really, this is not real HDR. And for me, it's very easy to see, because when you look at bright objects, you see no details. It's like they are just bright, but they are flat. There's no, you need additional information for HDR, so you can get something out of that brightness. Otherwise, it just looks flat. And this game actually, it looks blowing out. It looks blowing out. Even the game trying to output the correct amount of brightness, it still looks blowing out. So I'm going to share with you a very useful feature that Nvidia has. If you have an Nvidia GPU, I don't know if AMD have something like this, maybe they do. But if you have an Nvidia GPU here on the PC, I'm gonna share with you a feature that is very, very nice to get rid of the clipping on these games that are not very good HDR games. So yeah, my recommended settings for every single auto HDR games is, you're gonna come here to game optimizer mode, and I'm gonna use VRR on this game because it's a very linear game and the performance is horrendous. I'm gonna talk about that later. So yeah, I'm not gonna use black frame insertion here anyway, because I cannot. And because it's linear, so it doesn't really bother me that much, the sample and hold blurriness of this LG OLED. So I'm gonna use fine tune dark area -16, and this is my recommended setting for every single auto HDR supported game too. Okay, which this is not. This is supposed to be native HDR, but not really. So we're gonna use that, and of course HGIG, and nothing else. HGIG, and Nvidia is going to help us here to get a better result. So you're going to press Alt F3, and you're gonna see this game filter option. So what I'm gonna use here is a filter called brightness contrast. Okay, so when you turn this on, by default you have some settings here on the exposure, contrast, shadows, gamma. Just change all of those to 0%, and the only thing that I'm going to touch here is this highlights option. I'm going to turn this highlights to -40%. So how did I get to this number? Why -40%? What I did is look at the clouds, look at a lot of examples, and figured out the number, so figured out the reduction here that was still going to give me the highest peak brightness while getting rid of the clipping at the same time. So when I look at the clouds, they look blown out, and everything here is this game, everything is looking blown out. Everything, because it's not real HDR. This is auto HDR. So things are bright, but without information, without definition, without contrast, without any additional clarity. So yeah, it's just bright. So what I did was to look at the clouds, look at the bright objects, and figured out the perfect percentage on this highlight number, so I get rid of the clipping. So for example, if I'm looking here at this rocks that are illuminated, and I turn this off, boom, they are blowing out. Suddenly I can no longer see the texture details of the rocks too well. And then I turn this on and I can see them better, a lot better. This is a big difference, and you can see it everywhere. But now, using this has a downside. For example, if I turn it here to minus 100%, so in this setting here I'm using highlights minus 100%. If I do this and then I go back to the default, I notice that I am losing color saturation. Okay, I'm losing color saturation, but I want to use it because otherwise, for example, these objects on the distance here, if I just use the default value, is blowing out. It looks blowing out. So what I do is I'm gonna use this minus 40%, and to compensate for the saturation, for the color saturation loss, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color gamut of the TV to native color gamut. So native color gamut, if you use that on SDR, the colors get wild and they get very saturated, which you might like it. Actually, I was liking that a lot at the beginning because that's how my plasma TV looks. Because my plasma TV, it has a bigger coverage than, it's going beyond Rec 709, okay? So even on SDR, everything looks more saturated. So at the beginning, I was very frustrated because the OLED on SDR was looking, the colors, it was looking less colorful. So I was looking for this color saturation that my plasma TV was giving me, and the solution was to change the color gamut to native, okay? But I realized later that, okay, that's incorrect and it looks wild. But when you are on auto HDR, actually, this looks good. It doesn't look bad. If you look at the, for example, we're gonna change it here to native. If you look at the sky, for example, the blue of the sky, which by the way, on this recording, the colors, you cannot judge the colors because this yellow light is affecting the colors, and I've seen the recordings, it looks blue for some reason. So I don't have a way to give you an accurate color representation. But trust me, when I look at the sky, this is not looking overly saturated. It's looking like blue, sky blue, no problem. But this native color gamut is giving me a nicer saturation for supported auto HDR games, and I'm not using it all the time, but I want to use it here especially because lowering that highlights, it is losing color saturation a little bit. You might not notice that, it's very small, but you are losing. So by using this native color gamut, which is the native color gamut of this LG OLED, which is DCI-P3, I believe, I might be wrong, but I think that's what it is basically pushing the colors a little bit beyond Rec 709, because this game is really auto HDR. This game is really, probably all the colors are within Rec 709, so that native color gamut is expanding the colors a little bit. So for example, when you look at this watermelon, it looks more watermelon to me. I mean, I eat watermelons a lot. I love them. I can eat an entire watermelon. I'm a huge fan of fruits. You know what I eat? I love it. So this is looking a lot more realistic to me. And these oranges, and these pears, I mean, I'm a fruitarian. I'm not, but I eat a lot of fruit. These are pomegranates. Amazing. Pomegranates are amazing, by the way. So yeah, it's looking a lot better to me. The greens, the sky, it's not looking overly saturated. This looks like a beautiful blue. So give it a try. If you think it's too much, the saturation is too much, just go back to auto. And I'm using the default saturation, which is 55 and warm 50. So just using for the colors, color depth 55, color gamut native. So the reason why I have to use that color control app is because this is locked for some reason on game optimizer mode. So warm 50. Okay, So, this game, bro. Oh my god. Oh, it looks bad. I'm sorry, it looks bad. It is trying to look good because it has a lot of Nvidia features and settings, but it doesn't. It looks blurry. The TAA is just a blurry mess. And then I have to lower the DLSS to auto because if I use quality, which still looks blurry, the performance is atrocious. Of course, I'm playing everything in ultra, but I have a 3080 12 gigabytes. I am expecting to play the games with high fidelity, okay, with high graphics. This looks blurry still. It looks blurry, it looks washed out. I mean, now it looks a little bit better, but you see that there's something wrong about the brightness and everything on the game, and it's too demanding. The FPS, as far as I'm playing here right now, dropped as low as 32 frames. There was a scene with fire. It was dropping down to 32 frames. That's just unacceptable because this is not even native 4K. This is 4K DLSS. 32 frames with a 3080. This is unacceptable. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So, yeah, I was not a big fan of the first game to begin with, but yes, this is not acceptable. It's blurry, like there's no definition here. It's just a blurry Vaseline all this on the entire screen, and then you see all this clipping that we resolved that with the Nvidia highlights. So now this is looking a lot better, but still, man, this is not up to the standards, and this is Unreal Engine 5, I believe. So if this is going to be the Unreal Engine 5 super spectacular, engine that we are expecting, it is not it. This is not it. This looks bad in my opinion. So I hope the games that I really want to play and that I'm really expecting, which is basically Black Myth Wukong, that's the game that I really want to play. I hope that game is not a blurry mess. I hope it doesn't come with a forced TAA. Yeah, I hope it looks sharp at least, and it performs better than this. This doesn't look good. And the performance is garbage. So yeah, it is a small studio. I don't want to bury them. They are doing things very well, like supporting the PS5 controller on the PC. That's awesome. I do see the features of the controller. That's nice. They are supporting the system level calibration, which is something that for HDR, which is something that I want to celebrate. But the game doesn't look good, and it's trying to. That's the problem. The game is trying to look good with these high-end features, and it doesn't. So DLSS quality at 4K, and the hair is a mess. It's all pixelated. The hair is pixelated. So the sharpness of the image is bad, and it looks washed out because the brightness is just washed out. I don't like it, not a little bit. So yeah, I will still play it and see if keep playing it a little bit and see if I can come back, but not a big fan of it. Maybe the game is good, but so far disappointing in my opinion. Disappointing. If the performance was easy and it was looking like this but running like 120 frames, then I would say okay, but it's running too bad and looking bad. So if you look bad and run bad, is not. You have to look good and run good. So yeah, let me know what you think. Try the settings. I don't want to show you a lot because I don't want to spoil things, but yeah, that's my recommended settings. Let me just go back to not using this, for example. Here, if I don't use this, look at this. It's all blowing out. This is how the game looks. It's terrible. This looks terrible. I have to use this. Boom. Now it's a little bit better, but still, it's terrible, man. Terrible. I don't like it, not a little bit. But yeah, it is what it is. Let me know if you have any questions.